Christmas is coming. Christmas is the mother of all holidays, and it really kind of got started this morning at my house because the elf on a shelf is back in our home. That's right. The elf somehow got out of the box. We'd stuffed him in the closet, and he got out and up onto our tree. And it's good to have the little rat back. It really is. You know, you tell kids not to tattle, and then you bring this elf into the house whose only job is to tell Santa all the bad things that they do. And my daughter, Jane, who's 5 years old, is now very determined to impress the elf. So this morning, she brushed her teeth in the living room in front of him. Like, look at what I'm doing. And my son Billy calls Santa a ho-ho. He's like, ho-ho. The season is upon us. Today is Giving Tuesday. Yesterday was Selfish Monday or Cyber Monday, whatever they... I went a little nuts on Cyber Monday. Woke up this morning with a dozen Amazon Echoes in my bed. There's one still in me, I think. Do you think President Trump buys presents for anyone in his life? Not a chance, right? The president is... You can't buy things on Twitter. The president now is in London mixing it up with fellow world leaders at the NATO Summit. Tomorrow, he's scheduled to meet with leaders from Estonia, Latvia, Romania, Lithuania, Bulgaria, and several other countries he's just hearing about for the first time. Today, the president and the first lady were at Buckingham Palace to visit the Queen and Prince Charles. And this is good. You know how you're not supposed to walk in front of the Queen? It's like a rule. Well, for once, Donald Trump tried to be courteous. And watch him here trying to not walk. And he's like kind of got a sideways thing going where he's... I don't know what to do. This is... Come on, lady, chop, chop. I got crumpets to eat. Trump was asked today about another member of the royal family, the Queen's son, Prince Andrew, who, as you may know, stepped down from his official royal duties because of his alleged involvement with Jeffrey Epstein.
Mr. President, do you have a comment on Prince Andrew stepping down from his royal duties?
On who?
Prince Andrew stepping down from his royal duties.
No, I don't know Prince Andrew, but it's a tough story. It's a very tough story. I don't know him. No.
Yeah, he doesn't know him, except for when they met here, sandwiching Melania, when they were deep in mutual prayer at Westminster Abbey. Here they are another time out for totally separate walks in very close proximity, but definitely not knowing each other. And here, not knowing each other at a party in Mar-a-Lago, and there's Jeffrey Epstein hanging in the back. These guys have taken more photos together than most cousins, but he doesn't know him. Does he think we don't have Google? And by the way, he does this all the time. No one has never met more people than Donald Trump.
I don't know him very well. I have not spoken to him much. This is not a man I know well.
I don't even know who they are. I never even heard of some of them. Most of them.
I don't know them. I don't know about them. I don't know what they do.
I don't know them. I never even met some of these people.
She never knew me. I never met her. I don't know who she is.
I never met them. I never met these people.
I don't know those gentlemen.
I don't know him. I never met him.
I don't know him. I've never met him. I don't even know him.
I never met the guy. I don't know him. I never met him. I never met the guy.
I've never met her.
I don't know her.
I really don't know her. I don't know her.
I never met him. I don't know. I never met her. Never met him.
I don't really know him.
I never met him. I never met Putin. I don't know who Putin is. You know, I know so many people.
But not any of the bad ones. He knows some of them, but... So this morning, Trump had a somewhat tense one-on-one with the president of France, Emmanuel Macron. Macron, at one point, corrected a nonsensical statement Trump made about the number of ISIS fighters that come from Europe. And then Trump lashed out at Macron's efforts to tax American companies.
Well, look, I'm not in love with those companies, Facebook and Google and all of them, Twitter, although I guess I do pretty well with Twitter on the other side, but I'm not necessarily in love with those companies. So France is going to put a tax on. It was totally out of the blue. He just had the idea. Emmanuel had an idea. Let's tax those companies. Well, they're American companies. I'm not going to let people take advantage of American companies, because if anyone's going to take advantage of the American companies, it's going to be us.
That's right. Nobody beats up my little brother except for me. Hey, this is a topic I'm surprised Trump didn't raise with the president of France. America is reportedly on the verge of a French fry shortage. For real, because of all the cold and wet weather this year, fewer potatoes are expected than any year since 2010, which is a crisis that could result in millions of Americans getting healthier, I guess. I don't know. How can there be a shortage of potatoes? You get a 30-pound bag of them for like $6. I could build a house out of potatoes for less than it costs to buy a pair of VR goggles. But if it's true, this is dangerous because we can't have Donald Trump facing impeachment and a French fry shortage at the same time. There's no telling what he might do. But this really tells you all you need to know about how we eat in this country. The two hardest foods in America to get are French fries and the Popeyes chicken sandwich. This is the other sticky point between Trump and the French president. Last month, Macron said NATO was experiencing brain death. So today, Trump made it very clear that he did not like that comment at all.
It's a tough statement, though, when you make a statement like that. That is a very, very nasty statement to essentially 28, including them, 28 countries. I think that, you have a very high unemployment rate in France. France is not doing well economically at all. And you just can't go around making statements like that about NATO. It's very disrespectful.
He's right. He's right. What kind of a person would go around making disrespectful statements about NATO?
Number one, NATO is obsolete.
NATO is obsolete.
It's obsolete? We're getting ripped in NATO?
NATO has taken total advantage.
NATO is ripping us off.
I'm talking about NATO and how the United States is getting ripped off with an obsolete NATO.
NATO is obsolete. It's old, it's fat, it's sloppy.
Well, it's just like him. That's why he does it. On the other side of the world, the North Korean government today issued a warning to the United States. They called the talks with Americans a foolish trick and said quite cryptically, it is entirely up to the U.S. what Christmas gift it will select to get. What's that supposed to mean? Is North Korea planning to launch tube socks and fruitcake at us? But Trump isn't worried because he knows just how close he is to Kim Jong Un.
Mr. President, why has North Korea continued its nuclear program despite your various...
Well, we'll see. I have confidence in him. I like him. He likes me. We have a good relationship. We'll see. We'll see what happens. He definitely likes sending rockets up, doesn't he? That's why I call him Rocket Man. But we have a very good relationship, and we'll see what happens. It may work out, it may not. But in the meantime, it's been a long time. President Obama said it's the #1 problem, and it would have been war. You'd be in a war right now if it weren't for me.
Oh. Well, thank you, I guess. Pretty soon he'll be claiming he's friends with the nuclear warheads. I like the nukes like me. We'll see. Meanwhile, back at home, the House Intelligence Committee released and voted through their much-anticipated impeachment report. This report makes the case that Trump did all the stuff everybody already knows he did. But one of the more notable McNuggets in it came from inside the House. The top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee, loyal Team Trumper Devin Nunes, according to this report, they have phone records that show multiple contacts between Nunes and one of Rudy Giuliani's Ukrainian henchmen, Lev Parnas. That guy, who was recently indicted for campaign finance violations. Devin Nunes spoke to Parnas on the phone several times and did not disclose that or recuse himself from the investigation. This is like if we found out Judge Ito used to crash on O.J.'s couch or something. So Nunes is also suing CNN for defamation. In the suit, Nunes says CNN should have known Parnas was a renowned liar, a fraudster, a hustler, an opportunist with delusions of grandeur. They should have known, but he didn't, even though they repeatedly spoke on the telephone. Nunes had a number of conversations with Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, too. But for a member of the Intelligence Committee, he sure doesn't seem to have any. He really doesn't. But this report explains why these Republicans around Trump keep saying he didn't do anything wrong. It's because they did the same stuff he did. Trump said today he's not even thinking about impeachment right now. While that may be true, he doesn't like to think. We know that. He is tweeting about it. These are tweets about the impeachment from the past 2 days that he isn't thinking about. Trump is getting angrier by the day. He's especially unhappy with the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff.
What do we want to learn from Adam Schiff testimony?
From which?
From Adam Schiff.
I learned nothing from Adam Schiff. I think he's a maniac.
What would you want to learn if he testified?
I think Adam Schiff is a deranged human being. I think he grew up with a complex for lots of reasons that are obvious. I think he's a very sick man.
So just to recap, Adam Schiff, maniac, deranged, sick man. Kim Jong Un, good friend, great guy. I think he's going to Hi, I'm Jimmy Kimmel. Give back this holiday season. Buy my new book, The Serious Goose. I wrote it and drew it. All the money I make goes to children's hospitals across the country. And if you don't support that, You are a monster.